Very well, thank you very much, Virginia. Yes, we are seeing those opinion polls this morning in both The Age and the Herald Sun pointing to a strong win by the Premier Daniel Andrews. Those polls also show a big rise in support for independent candidates. In fact, in The Age, they and minor parties are attracting 15%, which is quite a significant figure. And one politician hoping to surf in on the back of that is Fiona Patten. She is the leader of the delightfully named Reason Party, and Fiona Patten joins me now.
Good morning.
What are you doing in this Melbourne weather, Fiona Patten?
I know, this is not very reasonable at all,
It's not very reasonable at all.
No.
Now, you're already a member of the Legislative Council.
Yes.
You're hoping to get a few more of your fellow travellers in, and also in the lower house. How's it looking one day out?
Look, it's really hard for a small party to know how we're tracking, so it's only kind of what we're seeing anecdotally on the early polling booths. But yeah, there's a real interest. Certainly in the north, I think people like the idea of a Reason and hopefully like what we have done in the last 4 years.
OK, for Victorian viewers, and especially for those watching outside of Victoria, if you can sum up very briefly what your party stands for and what you can bring to the Victorian Parliament.
Yes. Not better weather. I've been an effective independent in the upper house, and that means that we've kind of worked with both parties. I wouldn't say that we're left or right. I'd say that we're a very central, forward-thinking party, and that's enabled us to get the end-of-life choices inquiry up, drug law reform, and a whole raft of other issues that possibly the major parties wouldn't have jumped on had they not been nudged by someone like me.
You were instrumental, along with the Premier Daniel Andrews, of setting up this medically supervised injecting room in Richmond. The Liberal leader Matthew Guy says that is wrong in his view. He argues we should not be subsidising people to take ice, and he's promised if he wins within days he will shut that facility down. What, in your view, would the consequences of that be?
That would be disastrous. You know, this centre is saving lives. It is taking people who are using drugs, and this is some of the most chaotic and troubled people in our society. It is taking them off the streets, and it is offering them a pathway to treatment and a pathway to rehabilitation. I have no doubt that if he tries to close it down, there will be civil disobedience and someone will open up a centre in that region to save those lives.
What do you mean by civil disobedience?
Well, I saw in Canada where volunteers were just setting up trestle tables in alleys with lights and oxygen tanks and nurses there just to ensure that their neighbours don't die in the streets.
What do you say to his claims about taxpayers' money being used to facilitate drug taking, and also raising the serious concerns of nearby retailers who are worried about ice addicts on their streets?
Look, it's interesting, and in the first point, we already pay for things like needle exchanges, and we have done for 20 or 30 years. So this is really just another step in that harm reduction and harm minimisation strategy that Australia has had for 20 years. On the second matter, the traders have been very happy with the centre. The community has been really happy. I advocated and put the bill up after extensive conversations and extensive community support. We've got the AMA, the ambulances, the police, St Vincent's, the Salvation Army. There is not a single organisation that opposes this, except, it seems, for Matthew Guy.
A key plank of the Reason Party's platform is that you want to see cannabis legalised within, I think, a year in Victoria.
Yes.
Aren't you getting ahead of mainstream voters here?
I don't think so. I think we're certainly the polling showing that over half the population believes that we need drug law reform in this area. We've just seen Canada come on board, and the reasons behind it were to keep cannabis away from criminals and children. Now, I think that most of the voters would agree with those two objectives, and in looking how we do it, well, we have to do things differently. Prohibition is not working. We've got $1 billion illegal cannabis industry right here in Victoria. OK, and as we wrap up, the polls do suggest that Daniel Andrews will win. You've pretty closely connected to what happens inside this building here. What's your reading? Who is going to get over the line tomorrow? Look, I have a sense, and I don't know that I'm in the bubble of the North, but I certainly have a sense that the ALP are ahead and that they will get in. But the upper house is where it's going to be interesting into what diversity and diverse range of independents are elected up there, and how either Labor or Liberal will be able to work with them.
The upper house voting system is a bit of a joke, isn't it? We could have candidates with a tiny number of votes winning 4-year terms there.
That's right. I think it's been really unfortunate. I mean, the group voting tickets has operated fairly effectively for the last 10 or 15 years, but this time round it's been played extraordinarily, and I think there is no doubt, and certainly if I'm re-elected, I will push for absolute reform so people can't cash in on preference deals.
OK, before we're both blown away, Fiona Patton, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on News
Michael.
Breakfast.
Thank you.
Yes, and from the windy lawns of Parliament House, we are going to be joined a bit later on by both the Premier Daniel Andrews and the Liberal leader Matthew Guy. Back to you, Virginia.